Design thinking. Have you heard this term design thinking before? I'm sure you must have. After all, it is the buzzword these days. And you might have wondered what design thinking is. Is it a designerly way of thinking? In one way, yes, you have guessed it correct. It is a thinking process that designers use to arrive to the solution for whatever problem situation that they are working at. And I'm very sure that you all are very curious to know more about it. And what could be the best way to learn more about it than to listen to the experiences and stories from design thinking practitioners themselves? So let's meet design thinkers in this series of Creatively Alive with Roopali Pankaj.
Welcome to all of you. And I really am very pleased that today we have a special guest joining us to this episode of Creatively Alive with Roopali Pankaj. So please help me welcome Abhijit to this episode. And he is Agile Program Manager and Scrum Master. And he has an 2-decade long experience in this field. So I'll just welcome Abhijit. Thank you so much for joining our show today.
Thank you, Rupali.
Thank you. And Abhijit, I would like you to introduce briefly about your journey till now to the viewers.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Rupali, for giving me opportunity to share my experiences on your platform. So thanks for that. Yeah, so I'm Abhijit Mahajani. I'm working in this embedded software field for last kind of 19-20 years now. Working as an Agile Program Manager, I've also done the professional Scrum Master certifications and kind of playing the role of the Scrum Master or Agile Coach for last kind of 8 years now. So this Agile journey has been started, for the product development companies. We have worked on kind of an IoT products or multimedia or Wi-Fi speakers, and kind of recently I've also working into the automotive diagnostic software development on automotive basically.
Great.
Companies.
Okay. So that's a wide spectrum of products that you've got an opportunity to work on. Great, Abhijit. Great.
I'm really fortunate for that.
Yes, because otherwise it becomes quite monotonous if you are using same technology, and even if the product area also remains the same, it may sound monotonous after a period of time. But you, as you said, that you have got a great opportunity to work on wide spectrum. Great. So Abhijit, you shared that you have learned design thinking a few years ago, and you also got an opportunity to moderate the training as well as to implement it in your project. So we would just love to know that how was that experience of learning it, because it's a kind of a mindset, I would say, that designers use design thinking the whole process, and it is till the time you are already acquired your professional training in something else and you have been using it for a long time. So at that point, learning something new and try to implement this could be challenging. There could be different challenges depending on who everyone's mindset, I would say. So in your case, how was the whole journey of learning this new thing? How would you describe it?
Yeah, like I said, like I was kind of an agile project manager that day. I got introduced to this design thinking term in 2017.
Okay.
So when we were developing kind of an automotive diagnostic software in that company, so when we were I was asked to organize a kind of a design thinking workshop. So obviously, I was also not sure what exactly the design thinking is. But when we that we undergone a selection of vendors through a process, and then we came to know that okay, what is design thinking? And would say that there was also a challenge in front of us to energize the team members, because
True,
that
true.
time, and like we were having a misconception that design thinking equal to kind of an UI or UX, and
Oh,
we were having some teams where we were not having any UI or kind of a, it's kind of an headless software product. We are not
right.
having any, so then why should we actually go for the design thinking workshop?
Okay,
That was the
okay.
obvious question.
Right,
Then
right.
I approached those vendors, and like we had a icebreaker session first, like before the
Mm-hmm,
workshop we had the icebreaker session. And
mm-hmm,
when people actually introduce us to the design thinking terminologies and introduce into this design thinking world,
mm-hmm.
and there we learned about that, okay, design thinking is a kind of a thought process
Right.
which like solves the real problems, real life problems, by
Hmm. Hmm.
keeping the user in the center.
Say.
And I guess like, that was the major like difference what we were not knowing till now, that like, okay, keeping the user center, how to solve the real problems.
Right,
that was
right.
that was
Great.
the crux of it.
Right, right,
And
right, great.
that's how we like we went ahead and we organized kind of a workshop, and we
Mm-hmm,
went ahead of all those kind of design thinking stages.
mm-hmm,
We like visited some user research, or rather visited the workshop for which we want to build a software for. And
mm-hmm.
then we kind of understood that like, okay, how is the first step, that empathize
Right,
means what,
right,
like, okay,
right, right.
getting to know from the real users what is their need, how to
Mm-hmm,
approach the problem, what
mm.
exactly the problem first, and then how to solve that problem. So that we
Right,
will do eventually later.
right,
So that
right.
I would say that like, okay, that was a nice experience to understand the first
Hmm,
the problems
hmm,
and
hmm.
then derive the solutions. So
Right,
that was a
right.
different like thing what we came to know from the design thinking
Right,
process.
right. Great, great, great. Here, I would like to talk something about as you mentioned that, till now, people in your team, they had this perception about design thinking that it is related to only UX and UI. And if we are not doing it, then why is the need for us to, understand and in first place learn anything? Like forget about implementing. They didn't even see that there was any requirement that they can learn it. All this is just because of people are not aware about what design thinking is. And it's, as you rightly said, that it's about a thought process that can be applied to anything that you are doing and any real life problem that you are solving. So, which I would like here again to take the viewers note of this, that why it happens is because these are the kind of terminologies that comes across us related to few fields, and then we try and relate it only with that particular field instead of knowing more about it. And exactly similar thing is happening about even creative thinking or creativity for that matter. People just tend to think that creativity can be displayed only in art and design related fields. So only if you can draw well, you can paint well, then you're creative. Otherwise, you are not. People just label themselves that they're not creative just because they can't sing well or they can't uh, draw well. But that's not the creativity is all about.
Exactly.
Yes, definitely it is related to art and design, but the creative thinking, the thought process can definitely be applied in any kind of activity that we are doing. So even scientists, so wherever there is innovation, there is creativity, and it could be applied to any field, not necessarily related to art and design. So something similar. There are so many myths around what design thinking is. I'm glad that you talked about it, that it's not related to something, but it's a thought process that anyone can apply to any kind of a problem that they can see around. Great. So you already talked about that there are different processes, and we also know that design thinking, it starts from understanding the situation well, then defining it. Like unless you understand the situation well, you're not able to define it. Initially, you know that you're working on this particular project, but unless you go see, interact, see the environment, see the user, you are not able to understand what exactly are the requirements that you need to work on. So that's the second phase, where you define what exactly is required in this particular project, and then, or whatever problem that you're solving, and then you ideate and think about many solutions. Then comes prototyping and testing. So with that, when you are doing that early, definitely you get to see that what could be the flaws, and then again it's an iterative process that you can again come back, do some research wherever required, and update that. And the advantage that with this that we get is, we get to know what are the areas where the product may not work, and you get to know or get to work on it even before implementation of the final product. And as you were saying that I so from you, what I would like to know is what is it that which phases you thought that helped you, of design thinking helped you in your implementation or in your problem solving, whatever you were doing at your project. At the same time, like, this is first, and second is because you have so much experience as scrum master and into agile thought process methodology. So I would like you to talk a little about similarities between design thinking and agile practices that you've been using.
Yeah, very rightly said, like Rupali. That's kind of a second question. Like, definitely, I found it kind of a similarities in agile and kind of design thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's start from the beginning. So what happens? Like, from in like I'm working in the kind of an agile methodology. So say so we are kind of having a Scrum process. So where so we have kind of a different kind of a definite kind of an iterations. We work on some iterations, kind of a
Right,
couple of weeks,
right.
and then we create some user stories. We take those user stories. So
Mm-hmm.
in agile also there is kind of an user stories which
Hmm.
we kind of a, for example, like just for
Hmm.
this diagnostic software. So
Right.
as a technician, I want to use kind of a develop a mobile application or use a mobile application,
Hmm.
which will actually tell me that, like, okay, what is my health of the vehicle, or
Hmm.
like it will give me those kind of a DTCs in those terminologies, like that.
Right, right, right.
So here, like, until kind of before this design thinking process, we used to
Mm-hmm.
create the user stories. The requirement engineers or a product owner help to define these user stories,
Right.
but we have never like seen actually the real users who
Mm-hmm.
are the technicians who would be using this application software, or this mobile application for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know, so we tend to assume many things and we create the software, and then definitely in agile also there is like some sort of demonstration happens to the product owner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like this is what we have developed and
Mm-hmm.
how it is, like,
Hmm.
and we get the feedback, and then
Right.
we kind of tend to retrospect if there is something has to be improved or like that. So this is a general kind of a term of the agile software delivery
Hmm.
model.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what we have like seen when we started this design thinking workshop, we realized that, like, okay, the first step, that is the empathy. So
Right.
when we started empathizing to the user,
Mm-hmm.
we keep that user technician into the middle, into the
Hmm.
center,
Hmm.
and then we kind of develop the software, or we research them, like we ask the right questions to them, that, like, okay, what exactly, understanding their needs, what
Right.
and in which situation they are actually working. So then we
Right.
realize that, like, okay, how our software has to be molded or kind of a change based upon those feedback. Immediately we could see that
Right.
there
Right.
while
Right.
developing this one.
Yes, 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 yes. Abhijit, I would
So
just like to just interrupt you here and would like to add this point here is, sometimes, like, this is my experience when I've been guiding my students in their design projects, that they tend to, because they know that they need to know the user, so they try and take their whatever, like they just interact with them, and it's like an interview that they conduct with them, and users also talk to them and give answers to their questions. But sometimes when they actually see the user doing that particular task, when they are doing using that product, whatever they are doing, sometimes it happens that during these kind of interviews, when you are just asking them questions and they're answering your questions, they there are few things which gets unnoticed. But the moment you observe that particular user actually using that product, just by observing them, you get to know so many observations and so many insights that they won't be able to capture that in their question answer session. But the moment you just observe the user in the environment where they are going to use that product, you get so many insights. And from your explanation, what you were sharing, your experience, I just noticed that you mentioning that how observing them in their environment. So had
Yeah.
it been a long distance or just an interview where he's not actually performing the task in front of you, but when you saw him doing that, I'm sure that you must have come with so many different insights which wouldn't have come just by interacting with the person in a different environment.
Correct,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
And yeah, that reminds me an example when we were actually going to we went to the like a workshop, the
Mm-hmm.
garage, and
Mm-hmm.
like observed that like how the technician is performing, or kind of there was already some kind of a product like that, and
Right.
how he is actually using that product. What we
Yes, yes.
realized is like, okay, he is having kind of a like servicing kind of a car or kind of a bike or that particular vehicle
Right,
with
right,
kind of a 20 feet distance, that there is a kind of a long TV or kind of a TV like kept there.
right.
And yeah, he used to kind of connect some wires here there, and like observe the changes on that
Hmm.
screen particularly.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that actually like definitely gave us some understanding, because if we are doing some kind of a web application or particular some application or UI which
Hmm.
is having kind of a small fonts, so
Hmm.
then having that actually on the particular TV at so distance, it was
Hmm.
would not have been kind of a wise. So
Right, right.
even we have not asked any question, but then we realize like this is the situation they are really working in, and
Perfect,
so we have to
perfect.
keep in mind that like, okay, this is what can be a situation, a potential situation. So how should we actually change our software, or what the UI has to be changed, or anything for that matter,
Right,
the interfacing.
right,
So that
right.
actually gave us a different, definitely a good insight. And you
Yes,
are right,
yes.
like, okay, by observing only, like not asking
Right,
even question, but observing the real life environment of the user, it
right.
always
It
gives kind
gives
of some perspective.
insights.
So that was
Definitely,
actually a good
definitely.
example.
Yes, 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 yes. Great, great. So knowing more about the user definitely helped you to make that product more effective and useful for the users, right? And then next is like while you were now applying or using the other stages of design thinking, how was your experience in that? And again, we want to have more from you on this particular thing, that similarities between
Similarities,
agile
exactly. I
and
was coming to that.
design
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
absolutely.
please.
Because
Yeah.
when like, okay, so this is good that like, okay, we empathize the user, we understood their problems exactly. And
Hmm,
when we go back into kind of another like a normal software working environment, so yeah,
hmm.
it helps us to create those user stories. We
Right,
had already done the persona mapping, so it is actually always giving us kind of a perspective that like, okay, what would be the user, and as a user, and all those things kind of like we created.
hmm,
And
hmm.
then after like ideation, like, okay, we came up with some prototypes, some designs that like, okay,
Right.
wireframes were there.
Hmm,
So a different perspective is, I would say that like, okay, in normal agile world, okay, we are never shy to fail. Okay,
hmm,
so
hmm.
we keep on kind of an experimenting, kind of an inspecting the situation and adapting to the kind of the environment, and we'll
Hmm.
have to kind of refine our whatever we are doing. So
Right,
that we always
right,
do.
right.
And that's the kind of a what I can see that a similarity is like, okay,
Hmm,
in design thinking also, that prototype and test like
hmm.
stages are very
Right,
much similar to the agile's kind of a sprint demo, or that like sprint
right,
review, that's a
right,
terminology.
right,
And
right.
again, kind of like that is for sure is a kind of a similarity what I can like think of,
Hmm,
that we are already doing in agile.
hmm,
Just that like, okay, by having this design thinking, we got a perspective of actually the empathizing with the user,
hmm,
form those user centric requirement. Then
hmm,
when we come or we are ready with this mockups or kind of some working model,
hmm,
so actually I'll stage kind of in break into the two pieces.
hmm,
Firstly, the wireframes were also ready.
hmm.
Normally what we would have done, okay, wireframes we have shown into our UI expert or something on kind of a design, and then we could have gone ahead. But here
Right.
in the design thinking process, even if those mockups were carried like or walked through to the
Hmm,
technicians, we
hmm,
understood their perspective, we
hmm,
got their feedback, we
hmm.
probably could change or apply some changes there. And
Exactly.
then it was actually some working model was developed, and
Right.
afterwards, whenever that working software or some prototype was ready, we
Hmm,
went back to the technicians and like gave them kind of, okay, now check and whether it is actually fitting to your requirement or not.
hmm,
It's kind of a
hmm.
beta testing.
Right,
That's
right,
where I would say that prototype and testing are very much similar to our sprint demos and getting the
right,
feedback, kind of a retrospective,
r-
uh,
right,
like
right,
those.
right,
I
right.
can see some similarity.
Yes, yes. Only thing is that before this, you were just testing it with your own team, and with design
Yes,
thinking methodology, probably you made the
users.
final users also part of it, and which definitely helped in making that
Absolutely.
product, or getting that real feedback from the user, which is so very
From the field,
important.
feedback
Right.
directly from the field. We,
Right,
yeah,
right,
we
right,
got.
right, right. Great, great, great. Thank you so much.
If you think the information that I am sharing is helpful to you, then please like, share, and subscribe my channel because one thought can transform many lives. I'll see you next time. Bye.